They still haven't found this pid. Small pid.
You're not quite in
Swept away by flies.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the extraordinary meeting of the Finance and Projects Committee today, the 9th of May. The live stream is on. Welcome to those on live stream who are joining us today. So in terms of apologies, there's no apologies that I have for the committee. So can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please, to accept the apologies of none? There's none? Okay, I won't do that.
We had Ria, didn't we, from the previous?
She's not on the committee.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And there is a major late item which is about Rugby Park seismic upgrade, which we will cover in public excluded. So can I have a mover and a second to receive that late paper? Thanks, Darren. And so yeah, move Darren, second. I think Alex was first up. Yeah, was Leslie. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. So the first item. The next item. Sorry, is the business enhancement program projects dashboard. So 2 motions up there. 3 motions. Oh, right. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Quarter 3 performance. Sorry. We've just item 4. Righto. Oh. Hi, Rhiannon. How are you?
Kia ora.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll speak briefly to the non-financial performance and then hand to Patricia to summarise the financial performance. So I think there are a few highlights from the third quarter. The first of those is obviously the delivery of the second project within the roadmap to renewal. So that's now 2 projects within the whole programme that are complete. And 25.6 million of the total 145.9 million that's been expended. In the service level performance, there hasn't been a great deal of change since the last quarter. We will see some of this change further in the fourth quarter as the final annual results come in for those KPIs that are only delivered annually. There's one good news story. The public toilets now are on target to deliver their performance after arrival of parts for some of the eco-loos. Passenger transport numbers do remain down. There is no real change in the trend. However, we are holding a workshop with the public next week to discuss further about public transport and what people want, ideas and things. So that will hopefully reveal more based on the resident survey last quarter. And speaking briefly to the results of the resident survey, I think it's now becoming obvious where the methodology change of moving from a primarily phone-based survey to an online survey that we spoke about at the beginning of the financial year is becoming more clear as the online results come through, and so that might be something to consider as part of the LTP, changing some of the baselines. But I think the main message is that the core services of council remained strong, good delivery of all the water services, and yeah, I'll pass to Patricia to talk about financial performance.
Thanks, Rhiannon. In terms of financial, we're 3/4 of the way through the financial year at this stage. While on the face of it, it looks like the financial performance bottom line is much worse, you've got to remember that there was a significant amount of additional depreciation for the year, thanks to the asset revaluations. So when we take that out, the performance that we're forecasting for year end is pretty much right on budget, right on what the annual plan budget was. We look at the 9 months and we're slightly better than what we thought we would be, just because of just the timing of how things going through. The capital program is well through. The spend in that, trying to get back to my numbers. Well, the forecast has dropped again, so we're now forecast delivery of 53.2 million for the year. That spend is sort of getting into line with that. but that, as you recall, last year was the previous financial year was the biggest capital year that we had done. It's now looking to be similar coming into this year, thanks to some of the big projects finishing and a number of big projects still being there. We also have a number of forecast changes which we would like to recommend to council that they put in. This is just to ensure that we lined up the forecast because some of them go into outer years as well.
Okay, so just to clarify, they are the forecast changes on page 6 of all books.
That's a summary of them. They are in
Further on, yeah, but that's
further
the
on,
summary, isn't it?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so questions. So I've got Rangi. Yep, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I just want to go to the capital expenditure by activity group and go straight to solid waste. Now, we had figures at infrastructure earlier this month that nothing aligns. Seriously, it doesn't reflect accurately ICC's curbside collection volumes, which ultimately are what we pay our rates on. Everything else that goes to the transfer station independently is paid for at the gate, and commercial suppliers to AB Lime, they pay separately as well. So look, as Chair of Infrastructure, I have got no idea what's happening in this field. It shows a dramatic reduction in solid waste. Last year was a dramatic increase. This is a roller coaster, and even looking at the figures earlier this month in infrastructure, they did not align with our 2021-2022 financial report. So that there doesn't seem to be consistency with the figures, and the figures and volumes ultimately turn into cash. So look, I'd just like, I don't know, something to happen that actually shows us where we are, what we're doing accurately, rather than like every time I open a report on solid waste, it's like, you know, it's a surprise. So I don't know what we can do, or can someone give me an answer?
So just to clarify, so your query is around the volume variance.
It is, and the volumes are ultimately reflected in money terms, because
Yes,
you know,
yeah, I understand that, but primarily you're talking about the volume variance,
correct,
and the variance between what's reported here and what's reported in infrastructure,
and also in our financial reports and everywhere.
right?
It just there seems to be no consistency in what formula is being used, because curbside collection is one specific thing, and that's the critical thing, where the variance is, along with the contamination rate coming out of recycling. They're the two things that gauge what our cost is. Yeah.
Okay, have we got any response from staff about that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is the infrastructure GM isn't available today, but I think it is certainly something that we've got the message. It will go back, and I expect there will have to be a report on how this is calculated, and it's going to have to explain why there is such a variance between our documents. And you're quite right, Councillor, you have pointed this out at different times and in different capacities. So it's something that staff are going to have to address.
I mean, I don't mind doing this continually, but
Yeah, it gets a bit tiring.
We'll also, and within that, we'll also include an explanation of how that WasteNet works in relation to council numbers as well, because they are different.
Well, that'd be interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
Evelyn?
Just a couple of questions really about the resident survey. I couldn't sleep last night, so I read it all. I note that people have commented that it's a very blunt instrument, or that's my interpretation, sorry. That there's no, I don't know. For instance, responses to He Wakatoa or Splash Palace or the library, if people don't use them, but they feel compelled to comment, and I didn't find it helpful, because some of the comments, if you don't use the bus service and you've never used the bus service, then should you be commenting on the bus service? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to ratepayers. I mean, how can you evaluate how good or not it is if you don't, by choice, use it? And if you never go to He Wakatuia, but it's not as good as having the real museum or whatever. If you haven't been into it, what is your experience of it? It's none. According to what I read, it would feel that people didn't seem to have an I don't know or I don't use the service sort of option. And perhaps that could be part of the survey mechanism. Please don't answer this question if you don't use the service, or, you know, to stop some of the fill the space comments that I felt that I was reading.
Yeah, that's the nature of the surveys, isn't it? That you get those sort of random comments, for want of a better term, but at least people are responding as well. Is there any other questions before I start? So I've got a few. So just with respect to page 5 board box, you've got a comment in there, contractor response times to non-urgent inquiries was a concern. What's...
Sorry, which page?
It's page 2 or 4 on your report, on board box page 5.
Of the main report or the performance report attachment? Sorry.
Of
Just so I can find
your
it.
report. Of the main report. So the Senate's water, stormwater, sewage activities were performing well, with the only measure concern related to the contractor response time to non-urgent inquiries.
Yes. So this is the same issue as the previous quarter, and it's relating to call-out targets, which are to be responded to within a certain period of time. It's sitting very slightly outside that period of time, and that's relation to the contractor response and availability, and they are actively managing it. But it is currently sitting slightly outside the time window. It is not a great deal of difference, but it is sitting slightly outside.
Right. But they are actively managing it.
They are actively managing it, yes.
Okay, because non-urgent can become urgent quite quick, can't it, in infrastructure? Okay. Then in terms of on page 3 or 4, and I think this is probably you, Patricia, or someone, in terms of the forestry, we have people advising us around cutting and all that.
Yes,
sort of thing?
we do.
Okay, yeah, cool. The 91 million expenditure for 9 months, is it possible to see a breakdown of that expenditure in more detail and comparatives around, you know, the variances to plan, as opposed to just us reading a $91 million line? I think we need more insight in terms of...
So that would come to a normal finance and projects meeting as part of the breakdown.
Okay, right, good. That's good. Okay. The further down there, subsidy revenue, 4 million increase. What's that?
That is actually primarily because we hadn't fully forecast the Better Off funding for Tisbury. Wasn't actually in the annual plan because we didn't include it. Okay. And we will have met all the milestones. The current projections from the team is we'll meet all the milestones by the 30th of June to recognise the full amount of that.
Okay,
funding.
so primarily that's central government funding.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then point 4 on that same thing, subvention income. Is that meant to be subdivision income?
No, subvention income, so tax subvention payments.
Oh.
The council had a small number of income tax losses during the year, which they sold onto some of the trading companies.
Oh, cool. And then the next one, change in FTE. You talk about a change in FTE there. How many? Increase in employee expenses, increase reflects change in current staffing structure.
It's as we are change. It's just the recognises the changes in staffing that's happened during the year. So we might have come in, and the ELT at the moment would be a classic example. There's more than what we originally planned.
Right. So we had an increase in FTE against
in
plan,
in
or
some places we've had increases, in some places we're sitting with higher than planned vacancies.
But overall,
we're down.
Right.
At the moment.
Alan?
Oh, I've just got one quick question. Looking at the level of service on roading services, I noticed that the target is decreasing annually, and you've got it's noted in there the number of crashes, 1 fatality, 13 serious. It'd be quite good, I think, in my view, to to know if that's better than it was last year or the year before. And I noticed that the bottom 4 piece of that section, there is no information available, I think, is that what the grey means. So it'd be quite good, I mean, to see if, you know, what's being done here, because we've spent a lot of money rearranging things recently and road speeds and things, and so it'd be quite good to know that we're actually having a positive effect, in my view, whereas we don't have any answer. No, there's nothing here to indicate that is the case.
Yeah.
Can certainly take that feedback back to the team, and in the fourth quarter you will see all of that information. In the roading area, much of the data comes through the Wakakatahi central system, and so that's not available for reporting until it arrives. But we'll take the feedback back to the road crashes. Yeah.
And further to that point, so if there's an accident, would we pull the information out of the accident report that talk to, say, road quality or some of the sort of things that we have potentially could impact around that accident? Because I mean, accidents happen for a number of reasons, but we've just got to stick to what we could have changed, if anything, out of an accident to prevent it, don't we? So, you know, road quality would be a classic, wouldn't it, where there's been a poor road quality has led to an accident.
That's certainly my understanding, that the team works with the police on those matters, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to speak to the specifics because it's not my area, but the roading manager could certainly speak to that.
Yeah.
Bring that information back.
And that would come through infrastructure or this committee?
Infrastructure.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Other questions? No? Okay, so there being none, we've got 3 approvals there, so can I have a mover and a second to accept those?
Move that way, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Leslie. Thanks, Barry. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. Thanks, Rhiannon. Righto, what have we got next, team? Okay, we need to now move into public excluded, so can I have a mover and a seconder for us to do that? Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Rangy. Move and second.